Calls of the Russians, they set Magnum up. Magnum TA was stripped the United States heavyweight title. It's a shame it happened. I think a lot of it had to do with Nikita, especially they set him up with that press conference where Nikita insulted Magnum's mother. And, you know, Magnum just would not take that because Magnum's mother is such a part of his life.
That's right.
He's the driving force behind him. Well, Magnum went after Nikita, went over the table, and you know what happened there. Then, tell him.
Well, then Bob Geigel had a rebuttal, had a reprimand he read on behalf of the NWA. Let's go to that tape.
As a result of a recent press conference between the United States heavyweight champion Magnum TA and Nikita Koloff, the NWA president Bob Geigel and Magnum TA have been brought together for a very important announcement from the National Wrestling Alliance concerning the United States heavyweight champion.
The board of directors of the National Wrestling Alliance has reviewed an incident that took place at a press conference for contract signing between United States heavyweight champion Magnum TA and challenger Nikita Koloff. It is a majority opinion of the board of directors that the conduct of Magnum TA, the United States title holder, was not in accordance with the standard of conduct that the National Wrestling Alliance would expect from a champion. Although it has been noted that there was some strong language on the part of Nikita Koloff, the challenger. There will be no fine. There will be no suspension. But for the record, let it be noted that this is an official reprimand for the United States champion Magnum TA for conduct unbecoming a champion.
Well, just wait a minute now. You forget about the U.S. Heavyweight Championship. Forget about the whole NWA. This is my mom here. This is family. That's different. That's got to deserve some kind of other consideration. What would you have done if it had been your mom out there? Tell me that.
The United States champion is expected to keep himself in good conduct at all times. Let that be noted.
Well, reprimand this.
Place to be Nation Wrestling. Welcome to episode number 51 of NWA Crock and Roll. And yes, I am your host, Sean Kidd. And we are finally back to our timeline. For me personally, I have not recorded for this show since, I think, early June, way back on episode 45. So through the miracle of editing and then Schiff and I talking about our trip to Nashville with our guest tonight, who happened to be with us, we were able to make it through number 50. And here we are, number 51. Where we are finally going to talk about June 86. We are 1 month away from the Bash, and a lot of what we're watching tonight is the build to the Bash. But before we get started, up first, Dr. G, hello. I have not talked to you in months. How are you tonight?
I'm doing great. We missed you on the show. Well, I guess you guys got to do episode 50, but no, it's great to have you back and get back, back into June of 86. I can't believe that we're actually in June of 86 now. It's and this stuff is really heating up. A lot of this stuff now is bringing back memories. I'm starting to memorize some of the stuff from that time. Although my timeline seems to be off, like especially with like Ole Anderson. But I'm looking forward to breaking it all down tonight.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I missed the second half of May, but yeah, really good stuff tonight. And this is kind of where my wheelhouse starts kicking in. Right around July of 86 is really where I started to become the regular watcher. So this stuff leading into the Bash tonight this is really great setup for where I really started my watch of Crockett. So it's really good to be here tonight. Up next, my other co-host for this evening, regular co-host, I should say, Scott Shiflett. How are you, Scott?
Sean, I'm glad to have you back. I know me and you just spoke on episode 50 in our Nashville, it's not trials and tribulations, but our Nashville excursion, which I thought was a great time. Glad to have you back. Glad Dr. G is here. Missing a certain someone tonight, but I think we have someone that fills the shoes pretty well.
We do, and so Calum is missing tonight. I don't know how long he'll be missing. He is still drowning his sorrows in Drew McIntyre's savage loss to Roman Reigns, especially since he decided to sing American Pie over in England, which I really didn't understand, and he seemed to take the loss very well. But Logan's not taking it well, and then of course the unfortunate passing of the Queen. I'm sure that has added to his drinking pleasure right now. So with that, we have asked a special guest star to come in. We haven't had a guest in a super long time. He's been on the show before. And next to Dr. G and Schiff might be the least biggest fan of Japanese wrestling, Logan Crosland. How are you tonight?
In honor of Calum not being able here to defend himself, I'll just give you a good old Scottish "get the fuck."
All right.
But yeah. But I'm happy to be here. Glad you asked me to be on, and I'm looking forward to talking about what we're going to talk about tonight.
Yes, absolutely. And Logan was also on our Nashville trip, so maybe some of the things or people whose names we did not mention in our last episode, Logan could have been one of those people. So we will not. We will protect the names of the innocent, even if they weren't too innocent. So we won't throw anything out there. But before we get started, Dr. G, any thoughts on us actually number 51? I mean, we've actually made it 51 episodes. Any thought on
it's
the big
crazy.
milestone?
It is. What's crazy about it is that we started this, I think, during the pandemic. So, and it's just how life has changed just in that period of time in the 50 episodes. And I know we took a little bit of a break when things went over to Peacock, but then you decided, we're going to do other stuff. So we did that for a little while, but it's amazing. You had this idea and you ran with it, and it's really a great period in wrestling. I mean, in the 80s, I mean, like we always say, if they had the marketing machine that WWE had, NWA would probably still be around in this form, in a bigger form today, because the storylines are better, the wrestling's better, but they didn't have that glitz and glamour about them, and that's what people wanted at that time in the 80s. So, but it's great.
Yeah, it is, and it's still fun. So I'm glad we're finally getting into mid-'86. So for context, we're going to change things up a little bit. So I was thinking through when we got through episode 50, I was thinking, okay, so how do we streamline this a little bit? Because so much is going on. And for all of us, to be sure transparent, we have a lot of stuff going on at work, personal life, and things like that. It's been a very busy summer, which is one of the reasons why I haven't seriously recorded on this show since June. But now we're out of summer, so I thought it'd be a good time to kind of maybe hit a reset, refresh. So there's going to be some stuff we're going to talk about. I'll mention some things that are going on, and then I might have you guys comment on that. But as far as watching like interviews and matches and things like that, we're going to streamline those a little bit for the sake of time, and also for the sake that we're not going to do awards at the end. At the end of each episode, we're probably going to just say, hey, overall thoughts on what we watched tonight. We'll still keep the territory watch as well, because I think that's kind of a cool segment and gives us some perspective on what's going on everywhere else. But a little different. So we're just going to mix it up a little bit, nothing too drastic, and we're still going to stick to a format of really going all in on what's going on in Crockett. It's so hard to keep up, especially as we get into the bash. So with that, are you guys ready to jump into June of '86? You ready?
Let's go.
Let's do it.
All right, so let's do the rundown here on the champions. So your world champion is still Ric Flair. U.S. champion still Magnum TA. Their tag team champions are still Midnight Express. The six-man tag team champions have changed, and I don't think you guys brought this up back in the May Watch, but on May 17th, 1986, the Road Warriors and Dusty Rhodes defeated the Russians for the six-man tag team championships in Baltimore. So the Warriors and and Dusty Rhodes are the six-man champs. Your Mid-Atlantic champion is still the missing in action Black Bart, who we have not seen since he's won the belt, I believe. Your national champion is Tully Blanchard. Your junior heavyweight champion, also the missing in action Denny Brown. And your TV champion is still Arn Anderson. So with that, we are going to jump right in. We're going to June 7th of 1986. We are looking at World Championship Wrestling. So before we talk about the promos and things of that nature, we're going to go detail in. A couple of mentions here. So there's a Wahoo promo on this show, which I think all of us can clap. We can ignore the Wahoo tonight. But he shows a video of him getting beat up by Steve Regal and Jimmy Garden, which sets up a series of strap matches at the Bash. Jimmy Valiant and Baron Von Raschke do a promo, and they will have loaded glove matches at the Bash. And on a Bash update, there's an update on all the country singers that'll be there, and there's a Waylon Jennings interview, and Waylon says country music fans like wrestling. Imagine that. So Dusty calling, and then there's another thing, which is going to be a spoiler. Where I don't want to say it yet, but Dusty calling a certain person's return tonight and calling that person a redneck bigot, and then he shits on WWF Saturday Morning Wrestling. So, Dr. G, I'll get you first. Anything? I know we're not talking about this in depth, but any thoughts on what I just reviewed on other stuff that was on this show tonight?
Well, the first thing I didn't remember Steve Regal being around this long.
Well, it is a different Steve Regal. I mean, just,
right?
Yeah, it threw me off too.
Him being here at this time, so it definitely was, longer than I thought, but it just obviously wasn't memorable. And then the Dusty Rhodes, calling somebody a redneck bigot. You would never get away with saying that today on the air, and actually making his remarks towards WWE. I think that's great.
Yeah, I mean, it had me laughing. I almost thought about, you know what? I could just say it because in context, it's exactly what he said. So, and again, I didn't want to spoil the return, but I think we're all excited about the return, which I can't wait to talk about tonight. Scott, any thoughts on the stuff I mentioned?
Yeah, the Steve Regal stuff, we had actually seen a promo where he actually threatened the babyface in his little pink blazer, where I was like making fun of him because I said he looked like a mechanic that was charging under the table. But
hey, by the way, this is our Twitter. Steve Regal does follow us on Twitter, just FYI. This one does, not the other one. This one.
I hope he can, get my brakes adjusted next time I come in. But
okay. Well, go on.
The country music with the Great American Bash was probably great at the time, but also it had negative connotations because that's one of the things that Bischoff constantly pushed was like the WCW and NWA was Southern wrestling, and he was trying to take it national, and hooking up with country music just continues that stereotype. I'm not saying it's wrong, but I've met a lot of wrestling fans, obviously, and their musical taste is all different. But when I think of NWA, I think of like the country music, and them actually being able to pull Waylon Jennings was pretty impressive. I know they had a couple other stars, but I didn't think they were like the Oak Ridge Boys. But I never thought they were big. But Waylon Jennings, is one of the outlaws of country music, so it's a pretty big pull about Dusty. They probably did that smoking weed with Willie Nelson.
I can pretty much guarantee that. Logan, I know you're a young whippersnapper. 86. Correct me if I'm wrong. You're not born yet, correct?
-7 to be exact.
All right,
yeah.
So any thoughts?
Sean, I wasn't even born yet.
Yeah, well, you're regularly on the show. Logan's not. So Logan, any thoughts on not being alive during this and the things I just mentioned?
Yeah, I'm just completely floored. Nah, I mean, I know who Waylon Jennings is. That interview with Tony was absolutely ridiculous. I actually watched a little bit of it. Dusty calling anybody else a redneck bigot is pretty funny, and I think it's kind of funny that he shit on WWE. And the Valiant promo was batshit and ridiculous as always. So, but yeah, just not nothing too memorable throughout this, but some batshit stuff and some stuff that probably wouldn't be aired today.
All right, so those are the other things that happened on this Saturday night show. So let's talk about what we're going to talk about. So up first, we're going to talk about a huge return, and the announcers kind of lead us through this. So it starts off where we go. I believe this is on Worldwide, being showed on World Championship Wrestling. But we start off with Dusty coming to the ring. He's going to wrestle. The guy he's going to wrestle, he knocks out of the ring. And Ric Flair shows up and hands the belt to our favorite ref, 5-time ref of the year, Tommy Young. And he hands the belt, and we have a spontaneous world title match, which just out of nowhere, I mean, we're getting a world title match. So it's Ric Flair versus Dusty Rhodes, Baby Dolls at ringside. So just to abbreviate this, Dusty press slams Flair and gets a clothesline for 2. Flair dashes to the top rope and gets thrown off, and out comes Tully and Arn. Dusty beats on him, and then Flair is disqualified. But then out of the blue comes a return in Ole Anderson, who we did talk about in April 86 for a random one-off match he did in Japan, but he has not physically been here since Dusty injured him in July. So Ole comes out, all the Horsemen, and then J.J. Dillon show up and J.J.'s there to act like the traffic cop, and he's just trying to keep everybody out of the ring, which is pretty cool. And this is also really the first time that it shows that J.J. is the manager for the whole group instead of just the manager for Tully. So a really good unified front here for the Horsemen. The Rock and Roll Express and Magnum TA come to the rescue, and then the Horsemen get out while they can. Arn holds up the 4 fingers and declares that the three Horsemen are 4 once again, and basically says the Horsemen have hurt everyone, And does Dusty have enough friends to help him when they know Ole is back and he's coming for Dusty? Then we go to an interview with Ole and the other horsemen, and Ole is just legit on fire, man. He says Dusty has made the biggest mistake of his life by staying in wrestling. He comes down on Dusty and says he has two choices: retire on his own or let the horsemen cripple him so badly that even Dusty's daddy, the plumber, won't be able to fit the pipes together again. This return promo is absolutely lit. And you know what? I've never really thought about wanting to see an Ole versus Dusty match, but holy shit, the intensity from Ole just totally sold me on it. And then Ole says it ain't over until one of us is dead, which is actually silenced on Peacock. They actually blurt that out because I guess he threatens to kill him. And the horsemen are the burial team with their shovels. And then Arn screams out, "Thought I was next," making fun of Dusty's threats month earlier, saying that after he heard Ole, he was coming after Arn, and he's still standing there. Holy shit. This is great shit to open up June 7th. Dr. G, I'll go to you first. What'd you think?
You know what's good about it is, we always say the Attitude Era was, when they started bringing like that realism in. But, I have to tend to disagree on that. This was going on in the 80s. I mean, when I was watching this when I was younger, you really thought these guys hated each other.
Yep.
I mean, most people didn't.
Well, Ole Anderson, I think, hated everybody, which made it even better.
But that's true. He didn't even like the people he was teaming with. So, except for Arn. But I just love the fact. I love the realism in it, because when you're watching it, and I remember watching it at this time, you bought into the whole thing. Because of course, when you're a kid, you always heard, "Oh, wrestling's fake." But then when you watch some of this, you're like, I don't know. They could say it is, but I don't know. I don't know if I totally believe it, because you see the hatred that these guys, that they show for each other, which was really amazing for that time. So, I mean, because of what we've seen over the last, 20, 30 years, this stuff was way ahead of its time.
Yep. So I kind of rated it. I mean, I went to 2 stars on the match for what we saw, but I went 4 stars on the return. We don't really have to rate this one, but I think this is more angle than anything, to be honest with you. But
yeah, I didn't do a rating per se.
And that's fine. We don't have to on this one. Logan, I'll go to you next. What did you think of this as incoming and not being on the show for a long time?
Yeah, I mean, the match was more of a plot device to kind of bring back Ole and show that the 4 horsemen are back together. I thought Arn's promo before Ole even came in was great. He talks about how the horsemen, if they say they're going to do something, they do it. If they're going to take somebody out and they say they're going to do it, they'll do it. And everybody's going to feel their wrath. And, they'll strike. They're willing and able to strike whenever they want. They'll take you out in the parking lot. They'll take you out wherever the 4 horsemen feel like. And then Ole comes in and just, holy shit. I mean, he's on fire. He kills it. Just everything about what he says, you believe. You really think he's going to kill Dusty whenever them two lock up in the ring. But yeah, I thought both Andersons had just absolutely great promos here. But Ole really knocked it out of the park for sure.
All right. And a shift, the Andersons once again hit a home run on this show. Go ahead.
As Arn said at the end of the promo, because I have nothing else to add, so I think you guys covered it expertly. Toot toot.
Toot. All right, that's all you got on that one, Chip. I get the reference. That's awesome.
I mean, it was amazing, and I just love how Ole said they took out everyone. I didn't rate it either, because like everyone said, I thought it was more angle, but it was awesome. And I loved Arn saying everyone's been hurt by the Horsemen, and they're bringing back Ole, who we've already said is a son of a bitch, and it's well, I guess they're really just gonna murder everyone now.
Yeah, just to close it out, I'm excited Ole's back just in time for the Great American Bash, and the 4 Horsemen are officially together, actually probably for the first time officially as the 4 Horsemen. So really, really great stuff. All right, we're going to jump into our next segment. So as you recall, which we covered before, the press conference for Magnum TA and Nikita Koloff for their U.S. title signing, Nikita made fun of Magnum's mom, and Magnum got all boo-boo upset about it and turned into a fight. So here we are with the repercussions of that. So Magnum TA has been stripped of the United States title. And then we're reminded of the recent incident in which the Russians made fun of Magnum's mom at the press conference, and then Magnum retaliated. We go to a random interviewer who I have no idea who he is, standing with Magnum TA and NWA President Bob Geigel, who I really don't like, and I haven't liked him anytime we've talked about him on this show. Not sure why, but I guess they're trying to make this a big deal, and they have these random blue streamer curtains in the background to make it feel important, which is ridiculous. And Geigel reads a prepared statement formally reprimanding Magnum for his unprofessional conduct at the press conference. Magnum, again, getting hot-tempered, says, reprimand this. And he gives Geigel a really good hard right hand and storms off. And I really love this because, like I said, I think Geigel's a dick. We go to a later announcement from President Geigel saying the board of directors had no choice but to strip Magnum TA of his title. Tony is then shown with the Koloss, and Nikita gladly accepts the vacated title for his own, as he states TA purposely avoided the TV match so he wasn't embarrassed. Jim Crockett Jr. shows up and declares that they aren't just handing over the belt. The Great American Bash will now include a best-of-7 series between Nikita and Magnum to determine the champion. The first match will be on July 1st, and I believe that is in Philadelphia, and Ivan is pissed at this conspiracy, then cuts a promo on beating Warriors and Dusty for the 6-man tags. So, Scott, I'll go to you first. What did you think of this with Magnum? And we finally have the setup for the best-of-7.
I love that. Like, Magnum was so, like, pissed off, and I loved, like, he was just reprimanded after the conference, but then he attacks Geigel and gets suspended. It's like, you dumbass. But I mean,
are you like me? Do you not like Bob Geigel? Like, he just seems annoying to me.
He can fuck Ann off.
Okay, all right, excellent.
But I just like loved like how like Nikita comes out and was like how he should get the title now, and then and like how Ivan's even saying Nikita is the champ. I just loved all of this, and it was. I didn't realize this is how we got the best of 7. I thought it was just maybe the first match was like a no contest, and that's how they set up the best of 7. I didn't realize that Magnum was stripped. Looking through it with 2022 eyes, I think it like devalues the title in a certain way to have him stripped. I would have liked for him to just have the title and they do a best of 7. Whoever wins the best of 7 gets the title. But that wouldn't make sense with them swapping wins because I'm just going to assume they go to all 7 matches. I don't think Magnum's going to win 4 in a row. But I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and, again, this has really been building since January. I mean, think about how long this build has gone, and now here we are, and next month, in July, they'll start this series. And this is really where I started watching Crockett regularly, is when this best of 7 is what hooked me to begin with. So, Logan, I'll go to you next. Any thoughts on the best of 7? I'm not sure how much you know about this legendary best of 7 series, but this is one of the things that put Crockett on the map.
Yeah, I don't know a ton about it, but I'm sure it's great. I like Magnum TA a lot, so I'm sure I would super enjoy it. I thought Geigel came off kind of like a Weasley douchebag in all of this because he's like, oh, well, the committee is going to strip you. No, ball up. You got rocked by a hard right hand. You are stripping him. You're the president. Don't blame it on the freaking committee. But I thought TA showed some good fire, and I liked that he decked him in that little reprimand segment.
I liked your Geigel impression. You might as well add that to your checklist.
Okay.
That was a good one. He does. He just sounds like this rough, gruff dude, and you portrayed that very well. Dr. G, any thoughts on finally being set up for the best of 7?
Well, Bob Geigel, he is a weasel, and he actually was a weasel in real life. He's the promoter in Kansas City, which is probably one of the worst payoff territories in the time. So if you've heard the Kansas City territory, you probably heard stories, when you listen to other podcasts. So, yeah, so he's known for that. So he pretty much, what you saw on TV is pretty much how the guy is in real life. So you guys all have him pegged properly. But I just love Magnum TA's fire. Like I said, I didn't totally get it with him, over the years, because, when you watch, I couldn't remember at the time, but now I'm going back and watching this stuff. Now I can see why they wanted him to be a future NWA world champion. He just, he's a baby face, but he's not like Bob Backlund baby face, like he's got that edge to him.
A little Stone Cold 86, a little bit edge to him in this.
And I was thinking, like, it would have been amazing, like, because I brought this up on multiple podcasts. Like, it just breaks my heart because we know what's going to happen and we know it's coming. I know. It's like we're heading, up a mountain, and it's like we're about to, hit the snow, and it's just heartbreaking because I was sitting there watching it today, and I was like, it would be really cool to see how, because they would have did the inevitable breakup of Dusty and Magnum, and how that would have went. Would Magnum have joined heel but not been like with the Horsemen? Like, how would that have gone? Or maybe he would have joined the Horsemen after he made, because you knew he was going to drop the belt back to Flair, after Starrcade. Like, drop off in like the Horsemen. Like, what happens with Barry? It's just like Barry was like then added after Magnum's accident, so it's like what the hell happened? Like, it's a crazy what if that I don't think is talked about a lot in wrestling.
Well, the interesting what if you bring up is the Dusty Magnum. Like, would they gone that route? Because that would probably be a huge money match that they would have had based on their history. Like in '87 or '88, they could have gone with, which would have been amazing. So, yeah.
This best of 7, you're right, Sean, is pretty legendary, and it, again, the whole deal at that time with the Russians and the American, like that stuff was, we lived it at that time. So people really, that's why this feud was just so great. No, it was Nikita, we know, is not the greatest in the ring, but his character was just so good and just seemed like, you thought he was Russian, even with the hideous accent. He just played it off so well, and then I just love how he brings that fire out in Magnum. I felt like that was the opponent. We obviously the match with Tully, one of the best of all times, and that really brought him to another level. But I feel like Nikita really brought out the fire in Magnum T. And unfortunately, we're not going to get to see him ever, do what we thought he was going to do.
Well, we will get to see the best of 7 play out. I know we have at least, I think, 1 or 2 matches of that coming up in our watch in the future. So maybe more. I'm working on trying to find some behind-the-scenes stuff that I might be able to grab for us for our July watch. But we will definitely see some of that. And honestly, I'm hoping they're better than some of the ones we watched. I think we watched like 5 or 6 of these matches between January and now. And I don't think all of them have been that great. So I'm hoping the best of 7, along with that fire you're seeing, I hope that comes in the matches too. So we'll see how that plays out. All right, so now we're going to jump into one of the most ridiculous, really doesn't sit well in 2022 things that I've ever watched on this podcast. And I know Schiff had some comments to make about it. And Schiff, try to keep it a little PC in how you think about this, okay? All right, so we have the Rock and Roll Express. Cody says the world has been waiting for the Super Sizzler Tour from August 4th to August 10th. There are going to be 3 big contests. The Rock and Roll Express lookalike contest, where the winners, 5 to 13, they need to send a picture, and we'll get to spend a day at Six Flags Atlanta with Ricky and Robert. Then there's going to be the Miss Rock and Roll Express contest, open to all girls, age 14 to 17, who are encouraged to mail in photos of themselves. And this is my first note. Can you imagine a company doing this contest today? But that's not all. That's not all. Finally, the Rock and Roll Dream Date Contest, where the winners will get dinner with the boys, followed by a chance to escort them to the ring for their match that night. But they must be 18, and they need to have a 500-word essay. And during this whole explanation by Tony, Ricky, with his broken-ass nose, and Robert both stand there like freaking toolboxes. And when it's over, Morton basically says, "Tour will be hot," and that's it. That ends the whole segment. Dr. G, very uncomfortable watch. The age brackets on these are really disturbing, but I'll let you speak to this. And I'll save it for last because he's the one I worry about, so you go first.
Yeah. I'm glad because I'm sitting here. When I was watching it, when I watched this, when I was working, whatever day it was, I don't even remember when I was watching it, and I was like cracking up. I'm like, is this for real? I'm like, you're right. I mean, it's just amazing how could you imagine the WWE doing that today?
Oh my God. No. I can't even imagine it doing it in 86. Like, I can't.
17, oh my God. I can't stop laughing. I'm sorry. It's just like, how would you? I mean, I just don't get it. But
there was a little sense, and I think Ricky and Robert standing there all silent, looking like toolboxes. I think in the back of their mind they're like, yeah, they're processing what's being said, and they're like, oh shit.
They're like, oh, we didn't know about this until we came out here. That's what it looked like. like they just got this sprung upon them.
It was all right. So, anything else you want to add?
I think I'm going to keep it PC. We'll just leave it alone.
All right. Logan, I'll go to you. So I know there's a danger with you too. But what you think this is?
Well, a confused look is kind of what I think Robert Gibson looks like constantly. So I don't think he's far off in that little segment. But yeah, them standing there looking stupid is just ridiculous. They could have had Tony announce this, and how Tony kept a straight face while announcing some of this. He kind of smiled and smirked at some points because you could tell he knew it was absolutely ridiculous even for the time. But can you imagine what they received in some of those envelopes and letters and stuff?
Oh my God.
Can you imagine the 500-word essays? Like I would like I imagine this 40-year-old woman writing them this 500 essay about what they would do. I don't want to even say.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, just absolutely absurd all the way around for sure. And I'll keep it as PC as I can.
Well, all right, Schiff. I'm going to go to you next, so go ahead. I'm waiting.
So with the little kids, do you think the winners were the ones that were cross-eyed?
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, God damn it.
So I didn't even realize the kids one until you just said it now, because the 14-17 one, I was blown away that this was real, and I was like, oh my goodness. All I was thinking about was Jerry Lawler when he got in trouble in Louisville and Memphis in 1993, and I was like, this stuff was probably rampant. I felt like I needed to take a shower after watching it.
That's a good feeling.
Yeah, I was like, I had to stop watching.
It's a bad feeling, but it's a good feeling.
Yeah, I had to stop watch, and I was like, that's. And then it was like, oh, the Rock and Roll Dream Date, and it was like, no wonder Richard Morton has 15 kids.
What if any of them were for the Dream Date?
But could you imagine the 500 words? It was.
I can't even begin to fathom what a mess that had to be.
I'm more terrified of what the pictures will look like.
Well, yeah.
And if all the ladies were set 14-17, I'm gonna guess probably not.
Yeah, I'm it's just whose bright idea was that? And this comes off months after Flair was making fun of the Rock and Roll Express, saying all their fans had training bras, and then we're leaning into it, and it's to steal a Tim Capel line, what are we doing?
Yeah, that was, yeah. So anyway, the less said, we've kind of gone as in-depth of that as we need to. My hope is when we get to August or September, we don't cover this again, but for some reason, I think it'll come up at some point again. But definitely an uncomfortable watch, entertaining watch just for the sheer absurdity of it, but also a little uncomfortable. So with that, we're going to shift gears. We're going to leave this episode of World Championship Wrestling. We're actually going to go to June 9th, 1986, and we're going to Championship Wrestling for Florida. So as you know, Flair's still in this day doing the territories, and one of the territories he still does is Florida. Well, in 1986, especially, and we've covered Luger before. Lex Luger is we're gonna talk about Flair versus Luger here in 1986, and I think this feud right here is what kind of put Luger on the map as far as a future superstar. I know we've covered Luger in the past. I believe on one of the Battle of the Belts, where he took on the future Jimmy Jack Funk, which I think we all thought was a really good match, but he was a heel there. Well, Luger has turned face, and here in Florida, him and Flair and Luger had a match. So we're gonna talk a little bit about this, some of the things that happened and transpired, and where it sets up for the future, and I'll look for your thoughts. So we have Gordon Solie here, and I know all of us have certain thoughts on Gordon Solie and his delivery, but Solie discusses Luger and Flair. That they went 60 minutes recently for the title. Imagine 1986 Lex Luger going 60 minutes, which is crazy. And I'm sure, you want to talk about Flair doing a carry job, but they wrestled for 60 minutes. Solie takes us to a Flair interview immediately after that match, and he's very bloodied. Said he's feeling the pressure, and he says Florida always has the best competition. He puts over Luger as an Adonis, and he says he doesn't like being carried out or being stitched up, or that people say possibly next time he leaves Florida, he won't be champion. But he's not deterred, and he specializes in big guys. And he says next time he's here and he sees Luger, he's going to have to bloody him, and calls him a punk. And says, remember, he's the one that broke Dusty's leg. He made Barry Windham leave, and he runs down all the people he beat in Florida, and he's going to hurt Luger bad. He doesn't care about 30, 60, or 90 minutes. They then discuss a crew doing a documentary on Flair and showing a video of Flair arriving in Tampa with a female. Then after the match, leaving Tampa, and then Flair goes into a dressing room, then runs into Bass. Runs into Ron Bass first. But between all this, they show video of Flair's various matches which put him over, based on people he's beaten in Florida. Finally, Flair confronts Luger in the dressing room, who's sitting down with legendary Mid-South wrestler Bob Roop. Luger gets in his face about going 60 minutes, and he wants 90 minutes. Says until Flair beats him, they are equals. Flair says, "You are great, young talent, and you want 90 minutes. We will do it in Florida." Then we get back live in the studio with Luger, and the stip is on. It will be a match, 2 out of 3 falls, 90 minutes with 5-minute rest between falls, based on what Flair wanted. Luger says it'll be present champ versus the future champ, and he signs a contract regardless of any stip. So this is the first half of this. So, Schiff, I'll go to you first. What did you think about this initial Flair versus Luger confrontation, the match, and everything that's been set up before we talk about the second part of this?
Oh my God, this was amazing. Like, I wish they would make stuff like this more. This felt like not necessarily the same, but like a WWF like hype package video that we would see in like during the Attitude Era. I loved it. It made Luger look like $1 million, made Flair look like a fighting champion. And I want to know if this was a legit NWA title doc that they made, and if I can get my hands on said doc, or if this was just something they did. But like Luger looked like, I know, like, say most people aren't big fans of Luger. I enjoy him, but like this was just, it made him look like a world beater. I can't say enough of this. I will say my favorite line is when Flair said he will beat Luger, and he's going to shove Luger's arm up his ass.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's great. Yep.
And I have here that Flair is with one of his rats, because I'm pretty sure he was married to David and Megan's mom, and that 100% was not her, because she was in Minnesota. So Flair just flaunting that he's cheating for everyone to see. But it's Flair, so I guess what? But it was awesome. I really enjoyed it, and yeah, Luger looks like a superstar.
Yeah, I mean, and Dr. G, I'll go to you next. So I actually remember reading about Flair versus Luger in Florida in PWI, and that was my first real exposure to Luger at the time and this whole feud setup. But what did you think of this first half of Flair versus Luger, and a real first solid good look at Lex Luger beyond a quick match we saw at one of Battle of the Belts?
Well, as you know, I grew up in Florida, so I used to watch this, so I do remember this. And I'm not going to lie, Lex Luger was one of my favorites at the time, because they built him up when he turned face. That was like gigantic in the territory at the time, because of his look. And he used to rip off the shirt, kind of like Hogan did. He used to rip off his seat, like that was like his gimmick. His name was also spelled differently when he first started. He was actually the Luger when he first started in Florida, and they spelled it Lugar. But once he settled into his character, I mean, I just thought, and he talks about this before in other interviews. I mean, he actually really liked Lex Luger at the time, even though Lex wasn't a great worker or whatever. But he just thought the guy had what it took to be a star. And the sad thing is, if his attitude was like it is today, back then, Lex Luger could probably have been one of the best of all time, because he just, like his name, he had the total package. So, yeah, I think the way they've set up this whole, like, I guess if you want to call it like a little doc or whatever, Florida used to do that every so often. I mean, it wasn't the best produced things. I mean, they didn't have the kind of equipment that WWF had at the time, but they did a pretty good job with it, where you really, it drew you in. So Scott, you're totally right with that. Like, you felt, it was good stuff, like when you, and I remember this. I was so glad you put this on here, Sean, because it kind of brought back some memories, because I do remember this feud for a little while in Florida.
Yep. Logan, your thoughts? I know you've obviously seen later WCW Lex Luger, but this is like peak early Luger. Like, he's only a year, I believe, or so in at this point. So any thoughts on this setup?
Yeah, I mean, I thought he looked like $1 million. They definitely presented him well, showing that he had gone 60 minutes with Flair and went to a draw and everything like that. I thought Flair stuff was good. I loved that he was just bleeding with the championship over his shoulder in the locker room. I thought that was pretty good way to present that. The idea of the little documentary that they were doing was pretty cool. I would like to see if they actually put something together and made something like that fully, if they ever finished it or whatever. But I thought Luger seemed kind of green in his delivery on the mic, but like I said, he looked like $1 million, and they presented him well. So I think it was really well done.
All right, would you still want to see that documentary if Gordon Soley was the one commentating on it?
No.
Okay, all right. We'll jump to the second part of this. So the second part of this flashes to after the match has happened. Soley says we have some tape of the match and brings up the 60-minute match, which is now 6 weeks ago, and then replays the previous setup of the 90-minute match that we just talked about. Then we cut the clips of the actual 90-minute match. Luger pins Flair in the first fall with a clothesline. Later, Humperdinck Army, good old Oliver Humperdinck, attacks Luger, and Wyndham comes out to help, but he has a bad leg, and then Cowboy Ron Bass beats him up. This happens during the rest period. So I also noticed Muda was one of the main ones that are running in and pounding on Luger as well. So they're all beating him up which is great. Like, I don't have any recollection of great Muda. Being in Florida. I know he was on one of the I think it was called the White Ninja or something like that. But yeah, Muda's here in 86. Bill Alfonso is also the ref of this match. Flair is declared the winner because Luger cannot continue. And after the match, a very happy Flair he gloats about being the 60-minute man, says Luger wasn't man enough to beat him. And just like everyone else, he is beaten. Next time he comes to Florida, he wants someone who is hungry. The rematch will happen, but Humperdinck Army will be escorted out, is what we're told. Bob Roop has filed a complaint, and then Bob Roop comes out and discusses what happened to Luger was heartbreaking. Luger's not stopped for good. It's just momentarily. So, Schiff, any thoughts on the end of this and basically the end of it? So I thought it was good, really good territory angle here, puts Luger on the map at a bigger level. And it actually, what this match does is just, peek under the tent, sets up the main event for Battle of the Belts that we will cover when we get to September 86. So, Schiff, what is your thoughts on this and the setup?
Yeah, the part two was awesome. Like, I was shocked that Luger won the first fall, and I was wondering how they were going to get out of it. And then, like, it seemed like NWO B team was the ones attacking Luger. And I loved how it was the whole locker room. They drug him out, and Barry Windham even got beat down too. And supposedly Flair doesn't see any of it. It's like the perfect, like, I just really enjoyed this, and it could have been done without Gordon Soley narrating. As I told you about my issues with him, he literally puts me to sleep as I'm listening to him. I'm assuming that's a generational thing. I'm sorry, Dr. G, but it was just a perfect angle, and they were able to get out of it, and hopefully they had hot crowds coming to see Luger get his revenge.
Okay, Logan, what'd you think on this? The end game on this?
Yeah, I thought the whole match angle with all the people coming out and taking out Luger and Wyndham was pretty awesome, but I'm going to have to join Schiff and listening to Gordon Soley talk for the better part of about 30 minutes eventually almost put me to sleep, so it may have gone a few seconds too long on the talking part, but I thought the match angle was pretty good.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Dr. G, I joined him. I feel like with Soley at this point, he's so low key and low energy that it might take away from this a little bit. So the angle and the match itself carried this whole thing, but I don't feel like Soley really helped energize the situation and pumping people up. But what did you think?
Yeah, I mean, I did love Gordon Soley as a kid. I think there were periods of time, you're right, that, he wasn't, I think because we're so used to the way announcing is now. I mean, again, Vince and WWF changed the course of how announcing is. I mean, I know, JR did a little bit too down in Mid-South. So I guess, because if you listen to a lot of these old territories, that it is a little bit more, almost has a serious tone to it. And don't, because announcing, I did broadcasting at one time. They used to always tell you not to get too crazy, too excited, like it was just a different way of broadcasting then. So it is a generational thing. I agree. And yeah, I watch some of these things now and I'm like, wow, I did love them when I was a kid, but maybe not as much as I thought I did because I'm so used to the way things are now. But in regards to this is I love. We would always get those, and I used to love when I would watch championship wrestling from Florida, and you got like the house show footage. Sometimes it was just one camera, but you got like to kind of set up a feud, because sometimes the studio wrestling didn't always do that justice. So I love the fact that people came out to attack Luger, to help Flair, and kept Luger strong, but also kept the championship on Flair, which obviously they weren't going to put it on Luger at that time. So, yeah, I like you said, besides maybe some of the parts with Gordon Soley, I thought the actual angle was done very well.
Yep. And so at minimal, we'll revisit this in September when we talk Battle of the Belts 3. So we'll see if there's anything in between now and then, but we'll actually get a full match between them when we cover that show. And I think that's a pretty famous match as well, and we'll see how that plays out then. So definitely look forward to that. All right, so we're going to move on to June 14th, 1986, back to World Championship Wrestling. The only thing I'm going to mention that we're not going to go too much detail on is Baby Doll has a new wrestler in her camp, and it is the Warlord. And yes, this is the Warlord from the Powers of Pain. This is the Warlord from the WWF. So this is him making his debut here in 1986. He won't be here very long, so we're not going to really cover off too much on him, because when we get to July, a lot of things happen with Baby Doll and Sam Houston, which we'll talk about when we get to July. But unfortunately, that means that the Warlord's tenure here ends really, really quickly, and I believe he will join Sam Houston in a different territory, which we'll talk about in July. But Dr. G, any memory of the Warlord being in WCW? Because it was only for like 2 months tops, I believe.
I don't really remember this. I mean, maybe now you kind of bring it up, but I don't remember Baby Doll being his manager, to be honest.
Me neither. Schiff, I know you don't remember this, but any thoughts on the Warlord being Baby Doll managing him in 1986 with his? And by the way, Warlord with hair.
Yeah, when you put this, I thought that she turned heel, and
not yet.
We had just missed it, but I had no idea he came in. I know he comes in the mid 90s as the Super Invader, but I had, or was that Hercules?
That's Hercules.
But yeah, I
do.
Yeah, they're all the same. But
no, they're not the same, but that's okay. Go ahead.
But no, I had no idea, and this is just a quick, I don't even think he got to finish his coffee by the sounds of it. So
yeah, he didn't, and he was actually brought in to counteract Big Bubba. So that was going to be like her bodyguard, like Bubba was Jim Cornette's bodyguard. Logan, knowing what you know now, and I know you know who the Warlord is, any thoughts on him being in WCW in 1986?
Don't insult the mighty Warlord. I'm just playing. It's whatever. The Powers of Pain are in NWA for a little bit, right?
Yeah, we'll cover them when we get to 88. Not till 1988. Yeah. Barbarian's already here, but yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think he ever was in it before that run, so it's kind of surprising to see him here for sure.
All right, well, we probably won't bring him up again, but I thought it was worth mentioning. So we probably won't talk about him again until we get to 1988. So just transparency. All right, so we'll jump right in. So we open up with the Andersons, and they're here. They have words for Dusty Rhodes, and then we see footage, another set of footage of all four horsemen in the ring attacking the Rock and Roll Express. Dusty comes out to the rescue, and the horsemen really do some really good divide and conquer kind of stuff with the faces. Totally clear as Robert gets it out of the ring. Ric Flair puts the figure 4 on Ricky Morton, and that leaves Arn and Ole to beat the holy hell out of Dusty. As Ole then says Dusty was begging for help, and he replied, "It's over for you." Magnum and Manny Fernandez finally came out to the rescue. Ole declares himself a Rhodes Scholar because he knows more about Dusty Rhodes than anybody else. He predicts that Dusty Rhodes will announce his retirement before the end of 1986, and he pledges that once Dusty retires for the remainder of 1986, any fan who walks up for him in a restaurant and says Dusty Rhodes retired gets a free beer and a free meal. I wonder if we could pick up on that now, honestly. But anyway, then he shits on all the faces that follow Rhodes and says Rock and Roll Express are scared of them, and they're going to have all the titles. And that's really the first hearing of the Andersons going after the tag team titles. And if that doesn't pop you, I don't know what will, because I'm so looking forward to that. Ole says, if you don't believe us, come try us, and you won't like it. And holy shit, God damn it, I've missed Ole promos. Logan, I'll go to you first because Ole went on the microphone.
Yeah, he had another home run here. I thought this one was the other one earlier was probably a little better, but this one was also great for sure. I love that he called himself a Rhodes Scholar. I thought that was hilarious. Said he'd kind of been studying Dusty in his absence while he had been gone. He says Dusty's body won't hold up much longer, and he's closer to retirement than not. So I really like that he's really threatening that he's really going to end Dusty's career. Like no matter what gets in his way, he's going to make sure that happens. He goes into the fact that anybody that associates with him will be taken out, and all the belts are going to come into the Horsemen. So another really great Ole promo here. So I really enjoyed this one.
Yeah, Ole, a hot return here the last 2 episodes since he's been back. Dr. G, I'll go to you next. What'd you think of this?
Hey, this miserable bastard. I get more. I'm respecting more of his mic work as we go back and watch this, because he's really good, and you can see where maybe Arn Anderson learned, some of his, stick work, because again. Because when you get to hear all these things about these guys, after the fact these days, when you kind of like, oh, this guy's a miserable bastard, but he was really good, you really wanted to beat the shit out of him when you listen to these interviews if you're rooting for the faces. So, just another phenomenal job, and I see where maybe, and I know that Arn has mentioned before that he's learned a lot from Ole, and I could see why, because when Ole was on, he was just as good as any of them in the Horsemen.
And totally believable that they're related, by the way. I mean,
100%.
There's no doubt in my mind at this particular time that they are related. Now, they're being related to Flair, no, but these two, I mean, they're freaking they're amazing together. So
yeah.
All right, Schiff, what'd you think? I know you're a big fan of it. Like me, you pop every time there's an Anderson promo, so I'm sure you love this too.
Oh my God, like Logan, you said, like saying he was a Rhodes Scholar because he knew everything about Dusty. I also loved the Horsemen beating down everyone. This is the Horsemen that I think of. It may not be like Ole, could replace him with Barry and everything, but just the Horsemen running roughshod, like just beating the piss out of every babyface that gets in their way. This is what I think of, and seeing them do that and like just beating down Dusty, it's just amazing. You brought up he'll buy everyone a beer. I also love the line that he says that they are better than everyone, and if you don't believe it, then try them. That's just such a badass line, and like he comes off as such a cocky heel, but he's just a real son of a bitch, and you truly believe it, and I just loved every minute of that.
And I have no doubt in my mind that Ole would beat the living fuck out of me in 1986. I believe if I got in a bar fight with him, he would absolutely destroy me.
Mm-hmm.
I think I can take him now.
Well, I think now.
I think most people could beat the shit out of you too, Sean. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, that's not true. that is untrue. All right, that was not nice. I'm moving on. All right, all right. I know you are. All right. So next up we have Logan. Up next we have Baby Doll and Jim Cornette. So kind of continue that. Seems like the Janes boys have kind of petered out a little bit. So as quickly as they came in, they're out. But Baby Doll is here, and she is sure she can beat Jim Cornette in a match because he's not an athlete and barely a man. Cornette storms out with Big Bubba and calls Baby Doll a big fat pig, among other things, and basically says she wants to be married and fat and eating candy. Then she says she's frustrated against all mankind because no man wants her. Says Bubba will put her in her place until Magnum TA shows up. Cornette yells she will be taken care of before the bashes. So I had to throw this in there just because Cornette is the insult king. Dr. G, any thought on this little brief interaction between Baby Doll and Cornette that's going to kind of set up some of those mixed tag matches at the bash?
All I could say is wow. I'm like, wow.
Fat pig.
I mean, just the things that he says is this is why he's gotten in trouble in his career. But things were different in those days. I don't think anybody even blinked an eye, for good or for bad. I'm not, criticized, just wow. But again, it makes you want to see the guy's ass get kicked, right? I mean, he's such a pompous ass. Like that's he did his job. He made people want to come out and see his butt get kicked, and that's again why I loved this era of wrestling, especially for the NWA, because it seemed real. You bought into all this with Baby Doll and Jim Cornette, and just he was pretty harsh.
He was, and we have another in episode 52 when we talk about the second half of June. I think there's probably even a better one.
Not even the meanest thing he says in this promo.
It's
a
really
whole lot meaner than the next one.
Yeah. Schiff, what'd you think of this quick kind of blip on the radar promo here between Baby Doll and Cornette?
Where the hell is Warlord at? If he's supposed to be a protector, he was here for the 2 weeks. Like, what the shit, man?
You know what? I think he brings him in, and he's like on one of the syndicated shows. I don't know if he's actually live in studio yet. So,
but it was just amazing. And speaking of people you want to see get their ass beat, you wanted to see Cornette get his ass beat, and I can't wait till Baby Doll just embarrasses him.
By the way, I'm wrong. Warlord did show up on this episode. That is a great question. Where the hell was he? Because Magnum came in for the save, not the Warlord. So that's a good call out. Logan, anything to add to this?
Not really. Corny says his off-color stuff that he always does, but he was born for this era because he definitely couldn't get away with that much later than this. So he was definitely in the right era to start off with, for sure, to be in his kind of hot period. So it was funny, but probably not for the right reasons.
Yeah. So on our next episode, we'll have more of this, even more stuff with Cornette and Baby Doll. All right. So then we go to a Great American Bash report. They rattle off the matches that'll happen during the tour. Magnum comes out, and he reluctantly agrees to finally surrender the U.S. title belt to Crockett. Ivan Koloff comes out and gripes about having a best-of-7 series when they have a number one contender and a vacant belt. He demands the belt for Nikita, and Magnum hits Ivan with it and takes off. I thought it was a pretty damn good belt shot, actually. David laughs. As Tony just says, seriously, things like that happen when you try to take things from people. Ivan calls Tony out on his smug bullshit. This is actually some pretty good shit. Schiff, what'd you think of this?
I really enjoyed it. Like, Magnum just like pie-faced Ivan. Ivan like goes down. I thought Ivan was gonna fight back, but he's like, when he falls down, he's like a turtle on his back, and he's like can't get up. And
it was pretty funny. But it was funny as hell. But that belt shot was pretty damn good. It was tight. It was stiff. It was good.
Yeah, I love that he had refused to give up the U.S. title until now. Like my man's had it like for a week and a half, and it's just like, no, I'm gonna give it up on my own time. But we're gonna have a 6-man tag title in a cage match, so like they're loading up like the Great American Bash tour with some a lot of gimmick matches, which we'll see if it burns out everything. But we have an Indian strap match as well, so it's a lot of these matches going.
Yep, Logan, any thoughts on this segment with the Bash report?
Yeah, I was gonna say TA does a pretty good job of laying in some good shots in this one. He laid one in good for Geigel, and then belt shot is pretty stiff on Ivan. So good stuff from TA here. And he trusts Jim Crockett, so that's why he gave him the belt. So he didn't want to give it to anybody else because he didn't trust anybody else. But good stuff from TA here for sure.
How'd that trust in Jim Crockett work out at the end of 1988? Anyway, we're not there yet. I guess I shouldn't say that. All right, Dr. G, what you think on of this little brief?
I agree with Logan. The TA stuff again. I've gained so much more respect for him, and just the, the way the build up that he's doing, and just that edge that he has. And I didn't realize he had that edge. I didn't remember that at that time. But I'm loving it.
All right. And so that closes out actually the WCW that will cover the NWA Crockett era through June 14th. On our next episode, we will cover off on the second half of June. But we're going to jump right into our territory spotlight, and it would not be a Logan Crosland guest spot if it wasn't a Japan match. And it wasn't really planned, Logan. Woo-hoo! It just happened to fall into, this match is on June 12th, 1986. I randomly put something in the Google machine, and this came up. It's Tenryu versus the Super Strong Machine, which kind of confused me a little bit because the only machines I remember were from not too far off from this time where it was Andre and a couple other guys that went by the machines in the WWF. But anyway, so some background on this. So this is from June 12th, 1986. This is from Japan. Super Strong Machine, I guess, basically has been around since 1978, and he's held multiple tag team titles with different partners in the late 80s. This gimmick did indeed inspire all the machines that came out in the WWF in 86, so that answers that question. This match is for a title I'd never even heard of, the NWA United National Championship. The title has been around since 1971, and it's been held by folks such as Harley Race, Dick Murdoch, Ted DiBiase, and Abdullah the Butcher, among others, and eventually became part of the famous Triple Crown Championships in Japan, which I believe happened much later. So the match is very clipped, and we only get 5 minutes, so I didn't even rate this, but a couple of notes on here. I thought it was a nice enziguri by Tenryu. Super Strong had a nice close on the outside and top rope dive to the floor. Machine had a really great pile driver on a table that doesn't break and looked really disgusting. There was an awesome hanging German by Machine, and Machine misses a head dive. There's an enziguri and kick to the face by Tenryu. Then Machine hits an enziguri. The end comes on a power slam, small package reversal by Tenryu. Very hard to rate, very clip, but honestly, guys, I would have loved to watch more because I thought the 5 minutes we got here was pretty good stuff. So, Dr. G, I'll go to you first. What do you think of this very clip match, but kind of cool segment here, which I thought for 5 minutes worth of watch was pretty decent, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it actually, when I first saw it at first, how I feel about the Japanese.
Oh, I know all three of you sons of bitches hate Japan matches, but okay.
It wasn't that bad. It actually wasn't that bad. I kind of enjoyed it. I don't know who I think a Super Strong Machine was some other Japanese wrestler, but I think that whole thing with the Machine started over in Japan. I think the WWE.
Yeah, it started. He inspired that. Like they even said when I read up on it, he's the reason they came up with the gimmick.
I just love how they have like the trophies and the belts and the
Yes.
they like really get into this whole ceremony thing, before and after matches. But no, I thought it was a pretty good match. I mean, I enjoyed it. I mean, if I had to rate it, I probably would have went 2.5. It was pretty good. I would have liked to maybe seen some more. Which I can't believe I'm saying that, but
yeah, I mean, I probably would have gone 2.5 too. Like if this were like a 10 to 15 minute match versus like one of those 25-minute marathons like Japan likes to do, I probably would have been okay with it. Logan, what'd you think?
No, I'd definitely go, if I gave it a rating 2, I'd go 2.5. It was a pretty good match. I thought it was really fast paced. I would have liked to have seen it go a little bit longer as well. The pile driver on the table on the outside was absolutely disgusting.
Yeah.
And then I'm surprised. I feel like Tenryu was one of their big guys at this point, so I kind of surprised he took as much offense as he did. He kind of got his ass kicked the whole match, and then kind of escaped with the win. So that surprised me a little bit, but I enjoyed it for the little bit we got for sure.
So that's the key. 5-minute Japan matches. For
quick.
Quick 5 minutes. Make sure it's balls to the walls, and you'll be okay. Not 35-minute Martel Flair matches, right? That's the no.
100%. There you go.
All right, Schiff, close out this episode. What'd you think of this match?
I enjoyed this as well. I would have went 3 stars. You guys mentioned everything I legit had written down. The pile driver on the table was awesome, and I love that beautiful German suplex from Machine. Oh my God, that was a thing of beauty. And I love the ending, but I was really digging this match. I wish I saw more, which is a shocker coming from me.
Yeah, I actually looked to see if there was a longer version of this match online, and there was not. So, but you know what? It made me, at least I found a Japan match that you guys liked, so I guess that's a win. So anyway, that closes us out. And, kind of like when I said when we reformatted this, it was going to be a little short, a little quicker, a little, jumping in, and I think it flowed pretty good. So on our next episode, we will jump into June 21st. Through the end of June, and that'll close us out for June real quick, and then we'll have July next month. So before we go, Logan, since you are our guest star tonight, anything you would like to plug?
Highway to the Impact Zone. We're about to do the Genesis 2005 episode of that. We get a big debut on that pay-per-view, so I'm really looking forward to watching that one with you guys, or the guys that are on that show. You are one of those people, but I'm looking forward to that one. I do both salads, popcorn and wrestling chicken salad. Those are always a good time. But just check out all the pods, all the feeds. Everybody's putting out great stuff right now.
All right, Scott.
Yeah, just check, as Logan said, check out all the pods here. On the No-So feed, check out 7 Months of Danger, which is myself, Sean, Logan, Matt Souza and Jacob Williams for our special pay-per-views and Clash of the Champions. We were going over the formation and the run of the Dangerous Alliance. It's been a nice little eye-opening experience for me because I'd watched some of it, but not as the in-depth as we're taking. So check that out and just check out everything else. And that can be found on Twitter at Scott_Shiflett.
All right, Dr. G. Gonna plug that Trevor Murdoch Federation.
Oh, your favorite champion.
Uh-huh. Go ahead.
You can listen to me and the Podfather himself, Scott Criscolo, every Saturday with the NWA Saturday Special, where we cover the current NWA, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Some ugly these days, unfortunately, but we're getting there. We'll see as we work towards the next pay-per-view. But it drops every morning at 9 a.m. Have a little coffee, listen to us break down the new NWA, and maybe we'll get some more people to support the new NWA so we could get better champions. What do you think about that?
I did support them, and then Billy Corrigan's booking has taken me out. I'm still listening. I'm still trying to pay attention, but it's gotten hard for me. I'm just being honest. It's gotten hard, but
listen. The honeymoon period's over, I guess, right?
Yep, it is. But anyway, so as far as me, you can find me on Twitter at NWA Crock and Roll. Honestly, the things my two main pods now are this show, and Scott brought up the 7 Months of Danger, which Logan is also on with us to do that podcast. Mm-hmm. And really what inspired that show was kind of this show. But it was more of a short run where really they're only together for 7 months. And it was really easy to go back and track. And it's really a nice 21 to 22 episode kind of mini-series where we really track their matches, their promos, the angles. And I believe as of this episode, episode number 4 will drop the Sunday after you hear this episode. So really give it a listen if you haven't listened. From a time commitment standpoint, it's usually an hour to 90 minutes per episode, and it's literally only going to last for 20 to 20, a little maybe over 20 episodes. But we've really had a good time doing it. We've discovered a lot of things that we may have forgotten, like maybe some things we'd like to forget, like Firebreaker Chip and the Patriots and Pia News. And the good news about that podcast is Dangerous Alliance. We focus only on the Alliance, but it also gives you a flavor of 92 WCW, which is unfortunately why we've discovered the Patriots again. But anyway, it's a really fun pod, similar to this one. But again, these pods are really time frame based, and for me, that's really what I love to do. So that's my two main pods. I still jump in on Impact when I can. I'll be on the Genesis show, so I'm super excited to be able to do that with you guys. And also on YouTube Roulette, I jump in when I can as well. So as far as the pods, as many as I was on, I've really peeled that back a little bit. So anyway, guys, that's it. Real quick before we go, one last time, Dr. G, what did you think of everything we watched on this show tonight?
You know what? Stuff is heating up. I love the Ole stuff. Having Ole back, and again, I do love Barry as a Horseman, but the original Horsemen, I still think they're the best. People may argue with me on that, but I think when Ole's on, Ole is a great fourth Horseman. But unfortunately, he was getting towards the end of his career at this time.
Yeah, we got a little short run with Ole left at this point in time. I mean, almost a year, but not quite yet. And a lot of things happened with Ole over the course of that year too, which will be really cool to track. Schiff, any final thoughts on what we watched tonight?
It definitely seems like the March to the Great American Bash Tour is in full gear. We got, the start of the best of 7 coming up. Flair and the Horsemen saying that they're going to, that this is the Dusty Rhodes retirement year of 1986. I'm interested to see where everything goes, and we still got a week left.
Yep. And Logan, last but not least, and Logan will also be joining us on the second part of June to close out June with us. But Logan, any thoughts on this first half of June before we go?
No, yeah, I think the Horsemen, they all killed it, especially the Andersons. Just great promos across both weeks. I haven't been through this whole process with y'all, but I would be super excited to get to the July and the Great American Bash Tour and all that stuff that it entails. So this got me excited to get to that point for y'all. But yeah, I really enjoyed all of what we talked about, even though some of it might have been slightly uncomfortable.
Hey, there is one thing. Rock and Roll Express, definitely uncomfortable for sure. All right, well, that's it. So that's the first half of June. We will be back in 2 weeks where we will close out the month of June and the final build to the Great American Bash. So we will see everybody then. Thanks, everybody.
Tweeter and the Monkey Man were hard up for cash. They stayed up all night selling cocaine and hash to an undercover cop who had a sister named Jan. For reasons unexplained, she loved the Monkey Man. Tweeter was a Boy Scout before she went to Vietnam and found out the hard way nobody gives a damn. They knew that they'd find freedom just across the Jersey line, so they hopped into a stolen car, took Highway 99, and the walls came down all the way to hell. Never saw them when they're standing, never saw them when they fell. The undercover cop never liked the Monkey Man. Even back in childhood, he wanted to see him in the can. Jan got married at 14 to a racketeer named Bill. She made secret calls to the Monkey Man from a mansion on the hill. It was out on Thunder Road, Tweeter at the wheel. They crashed into paradise, they could hear them tires squeal. The undercover cop pulled up and said, everyone is a liar. If you don't surrender now, it's gonna go down to the wire. And the walls came down all the way to hell. Never saw them when they're standing, never saw them when they fell. An ambulance rolled up, a straight trooper close behind. Tweeter took his gun away and messed up his mind. The undercover cop was left tied up to a tree near the souvenir stand by the old abandoned factory. Next day the undercover cop was a hot in pursuit. He was taking the whole thing personal, he didn't care about the loot. Janet told him many times it was you to me who taught in Jersey anything's legal as long as you don't get caught. And the walls came down all the way to hell. Never saw them when they're standing, never saw them when they fell. Someplace by Rahway Prison, they ran out of gas. The undercover cop had cornered him and said, "Ma, you didn't think that this could last." Jan jumped up out of bed, said, "There's someplace I gotta go." She took a gun out of the drawer and said, "It's best if you don't know." The undercover cop was found face down in a field. The Monkey Man was on the river bridge using Tweeter as a shield. Jan said to the Monkey Man, "I'm not fooled by Tweeter's curl. I knew him long before he ever became a Jersey girl." And the walls came down all the way to hell. Never saw them when they're standing, never saw them when they fell.